I think this is so much less true now than it was when I started. But coaches, teaching history had kind of a unfairly bad reputation, I think, for not trying very hard or not, they had their feet up on their desk reading their paper. The guys that I had didn't do that. I mean, some of my favorite teachers were coaches because they were passionate about what they did. But if you're that kind of teacher, you're probably not a very good coach either. I would say the willingness to prepare, how relational you are with your kids, and the essence of teaching, being able to take an abstract concept and make it concrete for somebody so they say, oh, okay, I understand the words you're saying. Now I have the mental picture and I can do that. And as you said, adapt it. Okay, I understand the concept, not just this thing for this particular day. I mean, I can use it tomorrow.
Hello and welcome. I'm Eric Corum, and you're listening to the Blueprint Podcast, where we explore the journey of high performance by learning from the struggles and triumphs of some of the most interesting people in the world. Mark Malcolm is a 42-year coaching veteran that has positively impacted the lives of thousands of young men, including me. He's a tactical innovator, a master coach, and a world-class educator. Coach Malcolm quietly built a powerhouse program at Apollo Junior High School in Richardson, Texas, and won over 150 games that he coordinated. He recently finished his 4th year as the head football coach at the Shelton School in Dallas, Texas, and in his 4 years at the helm, he's made 4 playoff appearances. After spending 16 years in collegiate and professional football, I can honestly say he's one of the best coaches in America, and I am blessed to have been one of his players. If you find this podcast valuable, go to www.ericcorum.com and sign up for my high performance newsletter. In this newsletter, I provide you with valuable resources and information to help you pursue audacious goals, thrive in uncertainty, and live a healthy and fulfilled life. But now, it's time to lean in and learn from the best. Good morning, Coach. Glad to have you on today.
Well, good morning, man. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you.
For those that don't know, this is Mark Malcolm. He was my junior high football coach, and he's probably the best coach that nobody's ever heard of. And what I mean by that is, like, on a national scale, I've had the opportunity to work for and coach with some of the best in the business, people that right now are vying for opportunities to play in the college football playoff. And to me, Coach Malcolm is right up there, top 3 of all time. And we're going to talk about some of that today. But I got a question for you, Coach. Like, how did you get into coaching?
Wow. Let's see, that is an interesting thing because I probably, I got the job at Apollo Junior High, and, my father had been a high school coach, and, way back, I mean, practically not within my memory, he had given that up, started working to be an administrator. But, sports was always part of our life, and, wanted to coach basketball and football at Apollo. But, very honestly, I mean, I thought, I'll do this a couple of years and I'll pursue my law degree and, probably get into politics in some place. And man, I just loved it as soon as I started doing it. And
what year was that?
We started in the fall of 1979.
1979.
So I immediately met my wife, at the first faculty meeting there. And so very honestly, most of my first year was taken up with courting this pretty French teacher. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible life. And it's been that partially because, well, not partially, but almost completely because I have a spouse who likes it and is willing to deal with the time involved.
One thing I don't know if many people know is, you think about businesses that require a lot of time. You think of surgeons, you think of somebody that's a corporate CEO. But whether you're a high school coach, a college coach, or a junior high coach, the time commitment is huge.
Yeah.
Because of weekends, games, preparation. And you've been an innovator in your field. you started running a no-huddle offense with 13 to 15-year-olds way before many college football teams adopted this type of style of offense. What gave you the confidence to innovate in that direction?
That's funny. Kim and I were talking about this yesterday because I think we're right at the point in our program now that we're about to have to do something different. We looked at where we were in our program and we were successful, but we felt like we weren't going to get better without finding something that we could technically be better at than the people that we were playing against. I mean, you're very aware of the talent level of the people that we were playing, Duncanville and Mesquite and people that had, way more kids than we did. So we searched and that I thought that our kids would do well and that we felt, and, if I was confident about anything, it was about our ability to teach it.
Uh-huh.
I had a great staff at Apollo. Probably in retrospect, I should have done a better job of selling it to my staff first because I was so entranced with it, and I started doing research and watched a lot of videotapes, and people did, and there wasn't a whole lot out there. But
now, what was this?
This would have been mid to late 90s, probably 96 or 97.
Yeah.
We had been really successful, but we were multiple I kind of power team, but, going faster. And, this is an interesting thing because you have the innovative mind that you do, you're going to see this instantly. There's an intimidation factor when you get on the field with people that are better organized than you are. When you look up and the other team is able to do stuff like that, it adds a level of self-doubt that the other team has to overcome. And being able to do that, man, in junior high, we had, two coaches and, we had no huddle wristband driven offense with, substitution packages and stuff. And that's a lot of coordination and communication for a 2-man staff, but I'm sure it was intimidating. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and God, man, those guys have got pizza and girls, circulating their head and maybe a little bit of a sliver left for football.
It's funny to me. I graduated high school in 99, so 98, 97, 96. So 95, 96, I was with you. I think the transition was taking place because I remember going into the back of your classroom because I was just interested in football. And in the back of your history class, you kind of had this like football section. It was like a library. It was like a library class / because you're a history teacher. And I was like, where are you getting this stuff from? And you showed me videos of Hal Mummy and Mike Leach and Tim Couch at University of Kentucky.
Right.
And I just remember Tim Couch throwing balls into a trash can in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
And look, like the high school at the time was running a totally different thing. Right?
Yeah.
And so how was that received? Because, junior highs feed into high schools.
Well, man, that is a really complex issue. And the easy organizational thing is that people think that like Valdosta, Georgia with Nick Hyder or Lake Highlands in our district with, or they're running the same offense from Pee Wee football all the way up is the model for success. But I think if you look around the state at the number of really good teams that don't have any feeder system because they're district free enrollment, you can go anywhere you want to, like Dallas Carter, they didn't have feeder schools, but man, I've been on the field with them. And they were, especially in the Alan Wilson era, I was a great football coach, man. You couldn't beat them. So to some extent, I want to say every high school is reteaching what they do every year anyway, because there's a certain amount that's just not lodging in the heads of high school athletes. We had a complex relationship at times with our high school. honestly, we changed offenses a lot of. I mean, we had been an I team, a veer team, sometimes both of those things in the middle of a season. And, at a certain point, we just felt like we needed to do what was the best thing for our athletes, and that, we had to have confidence that the high school guys would be able to teach whatever they wanted to teach when they got there. Our job, and I say to our middle school guys, is, teach them to love the game so that they'll keep playing it, and make them fundamentally better. Teach them to get in a stance, teach them to, to block and tackle, and I'll teach them what we want them to do when they get to us.
Did you consider it risky
to do something different?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I certainly, there was blowback at times from that.
You said it was blowback?
Yeah. This was not always well received, but this is, probably more than you need to know. But since the junior high hired me, rather than the high school coach, man, it really, my biggest job was to please the junior high principal, and they were generally pretty pleased with the program that we had, because we had great kids, and our kids were people like, they weren't all in the same level, but they were Eric Corums that weren't just football players. They were involved in something else. They sang in the choir. They were in the orchestra or the band. It wasn't unusual for us to have first chair musicians on our team, and we had good discipline. Man, we didn't just care about our kids in the classroom. You probably had to carry a grade sheet from classroom to classroom as a player, and that's something that, as soon as I took over at Shelton, we started doing it again. I want to know on a weekly basis what your relationship with your teacher is.
Yeah.
So that we were able to weather that, and I'm sure it didn't make me popular at the high school all the time, but we did send them great athletes, and they were well trained as football.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's missing to me here is, like, as somebody that went through the system, I feel like I regressed as a football player in some ways, because, like, the great Bill Belichick or anybody else, there's fundamentals, and then there's the ability to think. Like, once you've cleared the fundamentals, and that's a lifelong journey of, like, improving your craft, but you have to be able to think on the field. And I think what happens is people get afraid when they're required to think, when it's something that they can't control and they can't understand. And people thought Elon Musk was nuts when he's like, yeah, I want to privatize the space industry. And, oh, you're crazy. Well, they just sent somebody to the moon and landed the rockets back on Earth. You don't
standing up.
Yeah. And if you look at Belichick, he's innovated every year, every game. Yeah. And part of that goes back to his philosophy. He really ascribes to a lot of the stuff with Sun Tzu, Art of War, attacking from a point of strength, making people defend from a point of weakness. What are your thoughts on that? Like, when you're scheming for somebody, like, what are some of the, like, mental models or the ways that you're thinking about things?
Well, that's interesting. One of the things that attracts me to what we do, and there's a million ways to do this. Again, I loved working for Jim Ledford, who was the best triple option coach probably in the country. I like things that are systematic, because they give you, okay, I'm going to look at this and see what we can do. I do agree, as a generality, I think you should be constantly trying to make somebody do what they do second best. That's Bill Belichick. Whatever you do best, they're taking that away, regardless of what it costs them somewhere else, because he believes the percentage is going to be that you can't do your second as well as he can do his first best, or his best. And, man, I think we try and do that offensively and defensively. I don't look over my DC's shoulder. Ed Berry's a great coach, and I've told him before, man, if I felt like I had to look over the DC's shoulder, I'd hire somebody else. I want to put a good person there and trust them. But offensively, there are things we're trying to attack all the time, and it has become, in recent, high school teams are going to play their best athletes at defensive end, or going to play games with how they cover your slot guys today. You watch the games, they're trying to make you think they're covering that guy, but that guy's really a box player or something. So we try and take advantage of them there. But the biggest thing for us is, and this goes back to me scouting Plano when Tommy Kimbrough was the coach, being able to do what we do better than other people can stop it. Plano ran load option, 40 times a game. And we don't care that we're going to do that. We're just going to do better than you. And my goodness, they did over there. You played them.
It was brutal.
Oh my God, they weren't tricking anybody, but Lord, they were good. And something else I'll say about having watched their program, they're another group that had a plan for everything. I mean, they knew that systematically they were going to, use the John Boston, numbered defense, and they still use that terminology. But even things like, they're the first team I ever saw that when somebody on the other team got hurt, everybody took their helmet off and took a knee. Like they were like robotic. They were all the same guy. And I thought, man, when you have a plan for stuff that minute, no wonder they're just kicking everybody's rear end. So I love that element of that, the system of it.
Huh. I mean, you've got to watch a lot of the great coaches in the state of Texas over the years.
Oh my, yes.
And what's it like during the week, knowing that you're going to match wits with somebody else? It's me versus you in a game of chess. Do you really enjoy that?
Oh yes. I mean, and when I was at Pierce, and a lot of this time, Brandon Hickman, who's now the Jesuit head coach and is one of the best offensive coaches, and then Stephen Anthony, who's now at Richardson High as the OC, was the play caller after that, and he and I were co-OCs. But, man, getting ready to play Highland Park and going over there, and you're going to play Randy Allen, and they always have a spectacular defensive coach. And, yeah, I mean, we're, driven by that. I want to steal that guy where he's not prepared. Uh-huh. And it doesn't happen very often because they're really good. But we were fortunate. One of the best games I ever saw, we got them to sit in like a quarters coverage, and we had the ball at the 10-yard line. And we just ran a curl. And as we were snapping the ball, I said to Brandon, they're just going to stay in that. So our guy just catches the ball uncovered. And I thought he's going to be mad down on the sidelines because he realizes that we just bluffed him into being in the wrong thing. And you don't get that very often, but that's pretty satisfying.
So I've heard it said, I don't know where this was a few weeks ago, they were talking about one of the college head coaches right now. And they said, what makes this coach so good is there's some coaches that adjust at the half. And there's some coaches that adjust like a couple drives in. But this coach, as soon as you line up your personnel, he's like, oh, I know what you're in.
They're in that.
He's adjusting like right then. Where do you fall on that continuum? I'm sure it's been a progression, but how long does it take you usually? Like you're like, oh, or you know what I'm saying? Like, are you kind of to that point now where you've seen so much football that you're like, okay, and can you translate that? How do you translate that to your athletes? Because that's really where the rubber meets the road.
Right. You know it is just a little bitty part of the game, being able to have something that your guys understand that they can then use to take advantage of that. Big deal. And again, we're looking for ways to do the things we do. And I'm constantly hearing from Marco Rivera, the O-line coach, who's, again, man, I've seen George DeLeon coach. I've seen Hudson Houck coach. Man, I think Marco Rivera is the best offensive line coach I've seen.
And he was a Pro Bowler for the Green Bay Packers, right?
For the Packers and ended his career here. And, the really cool thing about that guy and I would say about my OC, Philip Carroll, those guys they're great teachers. I don't know that Marco's ever been in a classroom, but he would be a spectacular classroom teacher. Sure, his playing career informs some of what he does, but he's not a great coach because he was a great player. He's a great coach because he's a spectacular teacher. But yeah, we're looking, okay, how are we going to be able to run? We want to be able to run zone counter power against everybody we play. And, as we're playing with them, it's kind of like the middle game of chess. Everybody has kind of an opening thing, particularly with the Bill Walsh scripting plays and that kind of stuff. And, everybody knows how they're going to open, but as you get into it where there's, flexibility and movement in the middle game, that's where I think you start looking to pick somebody apart. And, it depends on what game it is and how many plays you have. I felt like in the playoff game, man, my kids, what a gutsy effort. The COVID thing had neither of our first two quarterbacks were able to play in the game, not because they had COVID, but because they were quarantined from a contact somewhere else, not in the football program. But we had a wide receiver play quarterback for us, but it went along. We moved the ball some in the first half, but as we went along and started to pick these guys apart, and they were incredibly well coached, but we were able to run our stuff down to the game winds up being a game, with us missing, 3 starting receivers and our quarterbacks. I mean, wow. So I felt like our kids recovered, and that is a huge, huge thing for our kids and for our coaching staff. I felt like all those people believed and did what they had to do to maintain our program in the face of some pretty difficult obstacles.
Huh. So you mentioned something that I wanted to touch on, teaching. So you're not only a great football coach, but I think you would say that teaching is something that you have a true passion for. And you're a history teacher. Talk about how teaching in the classroom has impacted your coaching on the field, and then also how has your love for history impacted you as a coach?
Wow, those are great questions, and thank you for thinking that I'm good at these things. Out as an English teacher, but I have certification in English and history. I think it absolutely has overlap because coaching football is just teaching, and then I think the way you relate to kids in the classroom, is going to have that kind of carryover. I think this is so much less true now than it was when I started, but coaches, teaching history had kind of a unfairly bad reputation, I think, for not trying very hard or not, they had their feet up on their desk reading their paper. The guys that I had didn't do that. Some of my favorite teachers were coaches because they were passionate about what they did, but people had that reputation. But if you're that kind of teacher, you're probably not a very good coach either. I would say the willingness to prepare, how relational you are with your kids, and the essence of teaching, being able to take an abstract concept and make it concrete for somebody so they say, oh, okay, I understand the words you're saying. Now I have the mental picture and I can do that. And as you said, adapt it to the work in class or to the position I'm put in on the field. I say, okay, I understand the concept, not just the, this thing for this particular day. I can use it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think this is something I've always been amazed about you, but I think this is, I want to believe that we have this in common. I don't think I have your intellect or reading ability, but I'm well read because I want to know what makes things tick. And I can think back, I was 5 years old during the centennial of the Civil War, and Time Life put out like a paper, like history of the Civil War. The thing was probably 30 pages long, but I can remember the day I looked at that as I was maybe 5 years old. I still have it, by the way, but I've been fascinated by history ever since then. And I try to know something about the history of everything I'm involved in. I love the history of football. I've, being able to see film of, Sid Luckman, Sammy Baugh. And I have this, I have Dutch Meyer's book about spread football on the shelf up above me here, partially because Manny Matsakis, who's another guy who is always looking for the edge that you get from, what Spangler calls non-obvious stuff.
Yeah.
That guy, he mentioned it one time, and I said, by God, I'm going to go get that. If that's what Manny's reading, I'm going to go get that book because it's going to be good.
Was it you that told me the quote? I actually put it up as a post, like the something about the non-obvious. What was that quote?
Yeah, it's Oswald Spengler quote, the secret of all victory lies in the organization of the non-obvious.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I would say the little bitty detail stuff that a lot of people just don't think of at all, or they think about it when there's a crisis. They go, "Oh, wow, we needed to have a plan for that," and that may work. But that's kind of like, have a flat, and you think, God, man, it would have been a great idea if I had a jack and a spare in my car. The really, really good ones, and I don't myself at that level, but the guys that are great at whatever they do have as much as possible a approach where get taken care of. I mean, we check them all. Some of these I learned from sad experience, but our Thursday walkthrough has, we take a safety, we kick off after a safety, we practice covering a long field goal that we're not sure we're going to make. I mean, all those things are factored in there because, man, when they happen to you in a game, it's too late to say, wow, we should have put some time into that.
I'll tell you something. One of the coolest things, I think I told you this, one of the coolest experiences I ever had was at the Texans. And it was, we were practicing against Sean Payton and the Saints. And Payton had just practiced with Belichick. And Belichick ran this whole period of practice where it was like the offense and the defense lineup. The teams were on the separate side of the field. The coordinators had their headsets on. And he would be like, all right, the situation is this. You're on the plus 30. There's X amount of time on the clock. It's 3rd and 3. And then he would just step back and he would say, go. Coordinators call the play and the players have to run it. And he got this from Belichick. And we did this for I don't know how long. And you got to see like that's football to me.
Yeah,
and
it really happens, right? I mean,
I've heard of situational football, and Jimbo Fisher did a really good job of us. I remember one day he's just stopped practice, and he literally walked to the team down the field and just talked through scenarios.
Wow.
And it was just like, this could happen here. This is why we do this. All right, and 2 minute on Thursday became just like war. And I'll never forget this. You're going to love this story. I don't know if I told you this, but we were at Florida State. We had the number 1 defense in the country. And our offense wasn't too bad because every single player on offense got drafted. And our offense literally could not move the ball on 2 minute because we had 4 potential first-round draft picks playing in, so they would just rotate. And I remember Stoops would pull out a lot of the better players so we could actually get the playoff. And Xavier Rhodes at corner. I mean, it was just like Pro Bowler after Pro Bowler.
Wow.
But we had the confidence on offense, even if things didn't work out, that we could run 2 minute. And we were to win our first ACC championship. It was a Thursday night in Blacksburg. And it was like we were in the top 5 or top 10. And we were down by, 5 points or something. And it was less than 2 minutes on the clock. And we had to, and playing in Blacksburg is not an easy place. And this was with, what's his name?
Frank Beamer.
Frank Beamer's the head coach, right? You're like, okay, It's cold. It's Blacksburg. And I'll never forget EJ Manuel. I'm standing behind him on the sideline. He gets the offense together. He's like, all right, guys, this is Thursday practice. Let's go. And it was and it just boom, 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 boom. They went down the field surgically. But it was because they had the mental model for it. They had trained for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-boggling to me how many coaches don't even do this. Why do you think that is?
Some of it's background and some of it is their planning ability. I mean, practice time just gets away from, I'm guessing. I mean, I think how I see offensive football and how I see overall planning is partially the result of having been a basketball coach for a long time, because every year for 20-something years, on Wednesdays, I taught situations in basketball. You're behind, you don't have any timeouts, so we're immediately fouling. We're transitioning from our 4 corners into a set to run a play to win a game. Well, I mean, I'll give you an example, and I didn't make this play up. I think we got it from Bertner, probably from Coach Nicholas, but they had a late pull, last 4 seconds, 4 or 5, called home run, and we practiced every week. I use that play one time in a game. We practiced it every week for years, but the day that we used it was in the city quarterfinals, where we had we were behind by 10 points. Game's tied. We're in that situation, and I say to my guys is, home run, you throw the ball in, boom, we throw it down, we get a tip out, and Ron Bennett hits a jump shot for us to win this game. So it works perfectly. But I'm telling you what, if these are 14-year-old guys and you're getting out your whiteboard and saying, okay, let's try this, your chances of executing that are slim and none. Wow. I mean, the pressure's too great. They don't absorb information like that. But for these guys, it was something that they did all the time. Now, I mean, they're fortunate in it, us being able to execute it. But that's the kind of thing when you were talking just now about Fisher and Belichick, I'm thinking about the movie, We Were Soldiers, Hal Moore's training those guys from the Air Cav. And there's a scene in the movie where he says, okay, you're dead. Next guy in line, what are you going to do? Oh, you're dead. But he made you learn the job of the guy ahead of you and the guy behind you, so that in the reality of war, you have a chance to get out your manual and start doing it, just like you don't under the pressure in a game. You don't get to stop and reset everything. Guys like that are successful because their kids believe in it. Man, our first year of this staff, we're playing McKinney Christian in a homecoming game, and because of the oddities of the schedule, it's like the next to the last game of the regular season, but we're down and we get the ball at our 8 with like 2 minutes left. And man, we drive right down the field and throw a touchdown pass to win the game. I got one of our teachers had a phone on the sideline, so I have a clip of that play from ground level, and everybody's jumping around, and you can see the ball that he throws, and we're just systematic about it. I mean, he knew when I called the play who he should be looking for. And, man, he just zips the ball in, we win. It's probably, I don't know that we'd ever beaten McKinney Christian before. They were really, really good during that time period. In fact, they went to the state semifinals, I think, that year. We got beat in the second round.
So was there just a level of confidence, like when you're teaching somebody, like you want people to be fluid thinkers? And how do you inject confidence into somebody that it's okay to take risk? And no matter what happens at the outcome, I got your back. Like, how do you build that in? Because people aren't going to take risks or aren't going to execute in the moment unless there's this level of confidence, not only in themselves, but also what's going to happen when they return to the sideline.
No, that is a great question. Again, I think some of that with me comes from being a basketball coach. I mean, if you yell at your shooter every time he misses, they're just going to stop shooting. And that's not what you want. I mean, if a quarterback make a mistake, what is it? Jim Collins says, they have autopsies without blame. They come to the sidelines and, either I've already talked to Coach Carroll and then he talks to him because I want him to coach the guy he coaches in practice. And sometimes I coach quarterbacks for a long time, but I want to what we saw that caused us to make the decision that we did. And then we'll just talk about that. I mean, every once in a while I have to say, just buddy, you're making decisions that are above your pay grade there. Yeah. That's not one of the options that we would like. I mean, that's like outside the frame of where we want to go. But I like having a guy that's got that kind of confidence. The guy that threw that touchdown, I was just talking about, Benny Smith's a great example of that. Man, he was a gunslinger, and 99% of the time he would say, okay, I saw this and did this. And I guarantee you he was right. And we had discussed all that stuff and practiced against it so that he had, whatever you want to say, a bigger palette to paint from. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't afraid we were going to chew his rear end when he came to the sidelines. I mean, a guy that drops a ball, a guy that throws a pick, a guy that misses a block, that's going to happen. We need to reteach it, not spend time chastising the guy. They know they made a mistake. They don't need you to point that out to them.
Yeah. Who do you in the profession right now that people would know of, college or NFL, do you consider to be like, maybe it's understated, but like you really think is like a fantastic coach? Because there's talent makes everybody better, makes play calling better, makes coaches better. There's no doubt about that. But who do you look to and you're like, wow, they're fantastic in like on a multiple levels?
Well, I mean, and of course, I'm just watching and seeing them on TV. When I'm evaluating somebody, especially a head coach, I'm looking to see, first of all, how hard do their kids play, because that's a interpersonal thing. Kids are not going to play hard for people they don't like, and you don't have to like your coach all the time. In fact, I think that's unlikely. But having a relationship means when they ask you to give a little something extra, you're going to do that. So again, how can I not admire Bill Belichick? He's so systematic about what he does. Obviously, Coach Saban. Got a chance to see Kirby Smart speak one time and thought, wow, this guy's really put together. But one of my linebacker coach played for Alabama, and Coach Smart was his position coach. And when I interviewed this guy over the phone, he was still in Chicago then. What he wanted to talk about? The relationship with his coaches. He didn't say, I knew, but this guy'd never say, oh, I played in this championship game or I did this or that. But that relationship thing, besides being good at all the other stuff that I think that's at the core of things. I always thought Martin Antonio at Michigan State was a great coach. I saw them beat Baylor in the Cotton Bowl, unfortunately, since I had players on that Baylor. And I tend to be a Baylor fan. Really good. I would really like to meet Mike Tomlin because he conveys the core values that the Steelers have. Toughness and loyalty and those things. If they were to take modeling clay and make a Steeler coach, look at the last two guys that coached that team. He and Bill Cowher are just pressed out of the Steeler mode. They're tough guys, but they're loving guys. You can tell they love their players, and their players play hard for them. Man, now they got waxed the other day. I'm sure they're having a rough week, but that I really, really admire when I see. And, somebody like, in the basketball world, Mike Krzyzewski, a couple times I've gotten to see people speak like that and get to, he's just a handshake, meet thing. But I watch somebody like that they're teaching coaches, but teaching in a clinic, and you think, man, I would suit up for that guy in a heartbeat because he knows what he's teaching and he just loves his kids. He respects them. I think the Nebraska program at the height of their power, Coach Tom Osborne is about as good a football coach as I've ever seen in my life. And to meet him during that period, and I just marveled at how he presented stuff. He was, teacher in front of coaches. And I thought, well, no wonder this guy can be a great option team and still throw the ball well, which is something people question, right? I saw, what's his name? The guy that started BYU's success, but he said that, it's hard to be good at everything. You need to know what you do best, that whole, hedgehog principle stuff. You better be able to identify the thing that you do better than everybody else. So those guys really stick out. Again, my line coach, Marco Rivera, played with Ahman Green at Green Bay. So he introduced me to him. And first of all, both these guys look like they could still play. But Ahman Green sticks out his hand and he says, hi, I'm so-and-so. I said, I know exactly who you are. I watched you play for years. And when I meet those guys, I want to know, what was it? Tell me about Tom Osborne as a person. What was practice like with him? I think I've told you a couple of times at the Cotton Bowl, I've gotten to meet Cleveland Browns guys that played for Paul Brown. And that's the first thing I asked them. Tell me about Coach Brown. Just from a historical thing, Landry Brown, that group, I have enormous respect for.
It's amazing to me that here you are. How many years you been coaching now?
42.
42 years, and you're still wanting to get better.
I hope so.
There's so many people. That's not normal, though. There's so many people that just punch the clock in whatever profession they're in. And I think the thing about coaching, especially now in today's climate, like whether you're in junior high, high school, whatever, you can't last unless you're winning. Winning can't be the ultimate motivation. So it's this weird mind game of like, I have to be continually improving. I have to care about others. I have to love this. And then the winning takes care of itself. It's kind of like in business. You can't think about making money. You have to think about, what am I going to do to please my customer? What am I going to do to create this amazing experience for somebody? And then all these other things will start taking care of themselves. But as a quick commentary on college sports and the salaries of coaches.
Wow.
I have my own feelings about this. What do you think?
Well, I did want to throw this out since you commented on the winning thing. One of my favorite stats is that John Wooden was in his 15th year at UCLA before he won his first championship. And then he won like 10 in the next 11 years, which is one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. What if they fired year 3 or year 5? They would have never experienced that. As far as money, I mean, you've been in the pro college, so you've dealt with this. I'm a little put off that college football is such a gigantic business, and I wish there was more of a kind of the high school feel to it. But I mean, you're a Texas high school football player. I mean, you look around and we have. Now, I realize these are the choice of the community. I mean, these all were done by Democratic vote, but there's $60, $70 million football stadiums, high school football stadiums in Texas. Now, the places where I've been wouldn't do that. I mean, their priorities are different than that, and I'm glad. But there's just so much money out there, and it's one of the things that drives what you're just talking about. And I'm going to say, I'm paying you $5 million, then I expect you to have 11 guys on the field and, not get your kicks blocked and not get game 20 times in the game, because that makes us look stupid. And then, we're making this enormous investment in you. Now, are those guys, is that market driven? I mean, obviously the schools have that kind of money or they wouldn't be able to pay those guys. So,
yeah, there's a confusion that the money comes from the state, which it's illegal.
Right.
It comes from private donors, but the optics to me are terrible.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I think that there should be a flat salary. If you're in the Power 5, you can make X amount as a head coach, X amount as an assistant, and, you can work your way up to that. I think you'll see less craziness, more. I don't think you're going to see a Tom Osborne ever again or a Frank Beamer. It's just not going to happen because you have to win so quick. And even these small schools, like, Art Briles it took him how many years to get to a bowl game? 4?
At Baylor?
Yeah, 3, 4.
Probably about that, yes.
And then it wasn't like overnight. It was like this slow burn. Mm-hmm. Slowly build and build and build and build. But Baylor was so bad. It's like, what else? They just kept saying, oh, we got another win this year. Let's just stick with this guy.
Yeah.
And it creates just unhealthy, work-life balance. And in the NFL, it's a business. It is an entertainment business.
Yeah.
And so I think players and coaches should get whatever they deserve, because where else is the money going to go? To the owner? I mean, that's fine, so that's great. The owner's the business person, right? But in college, I think it just steals the joy. And that's why I think there's people like the Matt Campbells of the world. He can coach because he loves it. And he doesn't have to leave Iowa State if he doesn't want to leave Iowa State.
Right. He just likes it there. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I just I don't know. Just my time and all of it. just kind of tainted me a little bit. I just started feeling like, I don't like this as much anymore. There's no loyalty at all because people are more concerned about their pocketbook than they are concerned about doing what's right.
Right.
But there's people like yourself and other coaches out there that are doing amazing things in other sports, volleyball, you name it, that are impacting young women and men and changing their lives. And, personally, you helped foster that love for football in me. It was like, the Apollo junior high experience was like, at a weird time in people's lives when you're like 13 through 15,
right,
was kind of like the pedestal. I was like, I kind of judged everything else by, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of other young men out there, guys my age now, that are hitting 40 or 50 or whatever, which is nuts, that look back and we're like, man, those were great days. I want to ask you a question. Like, it took a while for you to get a head high school coaching job.
Oh yeah. I was nearly 60 years old.
It eluded you. How many games did you win at Apollo?
I don't know, somewhere around 150 men.
And how many
games
years
that I called the plays? I was there finally for 26 years.
And how many games did you play a year?
Oh, lots of times we just played 7 or 8 games.
Yeah.
And especially in the 7th and 8th grade.
So you won 150 games, playing 7 to 8 games a year when you were playing. I mean, that's what's your winning percentage?
Then it was probably 70s, somewhere like that. At times, like our last 4 years as freshman coordinators, I mean, the 2 years at Gardner and 2 years at Apollo, it was like in the 80s.
That's crazy. If you look at stats alone, you'd be like, why isn't this person moving up? Without going into like just other things, like what do you retrospectively, because you and me are kind of alike. We'll just call a spade a spade. And sometimes that can hurt you. When you look back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Oh yeah. One of the things, and hopefully I would have not yelled and screamed at my players as much when they were younger. Well, I will say my players for the last 40 something years, when I talk to them now, are very kind to not bring that up. But, trying to, somebody that you're not doesn't work very well. I mean, you have to know who that is, because nobody has a better, bull meter than young kids, whether it's your classroom or the field. You're putting yourself to be something you're not, see through it immediately. So, man, I don't have a specific instance here, but I would like to, if I could go back, I would be kinder to people. I mean, I don't think we were, haven't just tried to be mean to people, but I'm much more at peace now with the idea that not everybody I'm around is trying to be in the same place that I am, and being frustrated by that when I was younger. And I mean, that would just come out as anger sometimes. Man, so why can't you see this? Or why do you not want to put yourself into this at the same level? And I hope much more willing to take the joy in people as they are. And that's a thing that I wish I had done better over the years. I mean, I think, we built a program, and I don't think I'll ever do anything I'm more proud of than those years. I mean, they were golden years, but we stopped thinking about ourselves as a junior high program as a limiting factor, and just tried to think of ourselves as a football program, whether, it was things like, in those days, VHS tape shells that were in our school colors and had our school name on, stuff like that. And some of that a lot of it I got from other coaches, people like Bill Blankenship at Tulsa Union, who had that program run with the class of a college program. That's a great man, by the way. Great coach. Head coach at Tulsa for a while. It's not X's and O's stuff. I mean, that comes with time, and you know this well. Football's not rocket science. I mean, fairly intelligent adult ought to be able to figure it out at a certain level. I mean, the people we've taught have gone way beyond that, but it's the interpersonal stuff that I wish I had been. That we can always get better at, but I wish I had been better at from the start. I've always loved my players. I mean, I hope that comes across because.
Coach, you and I are very similar. Like, it's kind of remarkable, like, as I listen in a deeper level, how similar we are, because I would get angry with, like, people being passive. I'll never forget, I was at one place in the SEC, and I was always studying and trying to learn, and people were like, man, just get your head out of the book. And just like, and I would close my door and just grind and read and study and like try to get ahead and look for the edge. And it served me well to be able to see around corners. But like, I'm with you. I wish I would have done a better job of managing some of those relationships instead of just being like, I think sometimes my attitude, even though maybe I didn't say it, was like, you're an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Or like,
no, I understand.
And that's just part of maturing and growing. You have passion, and you've got to learn how to temper that. And then sometimes it's not you, it's the environment. And other people just need to change or get out of the way. Like Project Warp Speed. Unless some group of people decided that we're going to make this and forget it, I'm grinding, we're going to do whatever it takes to help the world get over a pandemic, there's no room for passive folks. There's room for different personalities, but getting everybody aligned around a mission. And that's, I think, the thing that you did the best at Apollo is like, hail Apollo, we salute you all through the years. Like, I still remember the fight song. Like, you couldn't wait to get the 200-pound club t-shirt.
Yes, that was awesome.
In that dingy, stinky, smelly locker room. And like, there was just a sense of pride about going from 7th to 8th to 9th grade. Yeah. And that you were going to, you got coached by really great people at every single step along the way. And then honestly, I'll just say it, my high school experience was a letdown, especially considering how much talent we had. Now that I can look back and be like, that was a waste of talent. But you guys created a championship program. I think everybody that was ever touched by that program was like, that was a winning experience. And absolutely. So I want to thank you for that, because you really kind of set the standard for me as a coach and now as a business owner of like what a championship experience feels like, looks like. And I know there's a lot of athletes out there that are young men and women that, you always treated people with kindness. As a student, like you came over to my house to play me in ping pong.
Yeah.
And
that was a blast.
And to absolutely ruthlessly kill me at ping pong, but you still came over to my house. And there's a lot of our athletes, like a lot of people that were bonded together by that 7th, 8th, and 9th grade experience. And I just want to tell you how thankful I am. And that's why I say that you're probably the best coach that nobody's ever heard of. And that's not a slight. It's like, I would go through these, I would think, I'm around this guy and they're going to be like this. And I'm like, what? Like, these guys over here got it. You know what I'm saying? The reason I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I hope people, if they walk away from one thing from our this whole idea of high performance, it's like where you are is not a limiting factor. It's how you think.
Amen.
And
absolutely.
And you epitomize that to me of what high performance truly is. So wow. Thanks for coming on, Coach. I really appreciate you being here. I'm looking forward to coming up to Richardson and having a hamburger with you soon.
Would love to. God bless you, man.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today on another episode of the Blueprint Podcast. If you found this episode valuable, sign up for my high performance newsletter at www.ericcorum.com. And if you want to stay current on everything high performance, follow me on Instagram at Eric Quorum, Twitter at Eric Quorum, Facebook, and I'm also on LinkedIn.